Welcome to the Professional Muslim Women Podcast, a place for working Muslim women to share their stories, struggles, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way in pursuit of their careers. I'm Dr. Kali Hussein.
And I'm Dr. Hani Ahmed. And in this podcast, we bring inspirational, trailblazing, successful, and fulfilled professional Muslim women to you.
Get ready to be inspired and learn how you can forge your own path as well.
Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Hani Ahmed. And today I have with me a guest that I am so excited to talk to. I am going to be talking to Amira Adawe today, and I'll tell you a little bit about her. Amira is the founder and executive director of the Beautywell Project. Beautywell is a nonprofit organization that aims to combat skin lightening and chemical exposure, as well as addressing other environmental impacts in Minnesota and nationwide as well. She is also an adjunct instructor of global health at St. Catherine University here in Minnesota. Amira previously managed the Minnesota Children's Cabinet of Governor Mark Dayton, where she worked on early childhood in all policies and systems using an equity lens. She's a public health researcher, and her research interests include women and children's health in the areas of access to health care, skin lightening practices, and chemical exposures. Amira is also the host of Beauty Wellness Talk at Cali Radio and Podcast. Amira has her undergraduate degree in Family Social Science from the University of Minnesota and a Master of Public Health from the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. She was also a Policy Fellow 2015 to 2016 at Humphrey School of Public Health at the University of Minnesota. Amira's work has garnered national attention, and she's been featured on local and national media, including the Star Tribune, Stat News, MinPost, National Public Radio, and Matter of Fact with Soledad O'Brien and WSB TV. She is doing very important, amazing work. So please help me welcome Amira Adawe. Hi, Amira.
Hi, Hani. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you for creating such a platform. It's such a great thing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We're really, really excited about this podcast. So let me talk to you a little bit about the Beautywell Project. I want to start there because we've known each other for a few years now, and I have been kind of following the evolution of the Beautywell Project. And I remember where it all kind of started when you had this really brilliant idea to focus your research in an area that's kind of underrepresented a little. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that I've come to sense that you're on a mission not just to highlight and stop these harmful chemical exposure and take them off the market, but also to change and empower women about the entire concept of beauty and health. So that's my understanding of it. And I thought we should start kind of from the very, very, very beginning and talk about what the source is of skin lightening to begin with, right? So your research is focused in the area of preventing. You're coming in here, you're exposing the chemical exposure that's related to the skin lightening products out there. But what do you think, Amira, is the origin of the skin lightening? I've heard of the, quote, whiter is better, end quote. That sort of phenomenon began in the colonial era and kind of passed on to multiple cultures through colonialism. But what do you know about what the source of that is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Hani. The thing is that, the issue of skin lightening practice, I want people to know that it's not an isolated issue, that it's interconnected with a lot of issues. And the root causes is that those countries that experience colonizations and also those individuals actually or communities that have experienced anything to do with racial discrimination learn to really dislike their skin color. So I'll give you an example. Countries in Africa, a lot of countries in Africa, basically their skin color is associated with their economic well-being, not only in Africa, but Asia and Latin America. So when I started doing this work 8 years ago, I was not even thinking about this association with colonization and racial issue. I was just focusing on chemicals, like how do we address these chemicals? How do we focus on the public health? And then doing this work for 8 years is one of the things I learned is that, and this is mainly rooted about our public health training, is that unless we really address the root causes, we're not going to address issues. So I started reading about history and why this whole issue started and why people are doing. And that is also when I started interviewing different communities. Beauty Well, we don't only work with Somalis or only East Africans. We work with Latino communities. We work with Hmong communities as well. And so meeting with all of these communities, reading about their origins and all of that. So one of the things that I learned in East Africa is that root cause of skin lightening practices is only associated with beauty standard. Meaning that during colonizations, people were told that only if they're light skinned that they're beautiful and they're more accepted in the society. And so people mostly talk about beauty in correlation with their likelihood of finding husband or boyfriend and all of that. So when I interviewed other Africans from West Africa, it's totally different. It's associates with their likelihood of finding employment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and being welcomed into the power even. Similarly with Latin America, Latino communities that I work with, those Latino communities who actually have darker skin, they don't have chances working in their communities back home where they came from, or even getting into a political office, because those who have light skin are more accepted, have more money, more power. And so even when the colonizers left, this becomes so much embedded in the cultures.
Right. It's passed on.
Yeah. So a lot of people can't even articulate the origins of why people do this unless you read the history and understand. And so that's part of it. My work also focuses on like, how do we really undo these cultures, these cultural practices that promote one skin color? How do we actually undo that and make sure that everybody is welcomed and everybody has to learn that they're beautiful enough for who they are, how they look like, and all of that. So that's where it's originated. So it started with colonizations, but communities accepted that and it becomes so much part of their culture that now they don't even understand that it's part of their culture. Even it's so part of the cultural words that we use. Somalis, we use words like Adawe and things like that. And other communities also have similar words.
Right, which means lighter skin is also a term of endearment.
Exactly, yeah. So I was thinking it's only Somalis that have that word, but other communities also have similar words.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. It seems to be a worldwide phenomenon.
It's a huge, huge issue. And I think it's going to take many years to really eradicate this practice. I mean, we have to change the cultures and the beauty standard.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So, Amira, tell me, all those years ago, when you undertook this groundbreaking research, what was the impetus for you to do that? How did you come to undertake this project?
So I started doing this project 8 years ago, 2011. So for many years, even when I was young back home, I used to see a lot of people use skin lighting. I mean, some of my family members used to use skin lighting. And coming to here in the United States, I've seen a lot of people that use, friends that use. So I could always see externally how it was impacting their skin color. Honey, it's not a beautiful thing when people use skin lighting. I mean, you can see the discoloration on their skin and all of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I know that a lot of the chemicals involved, like hydroquinone and the steroids, these are actually really bad for the skin and kind of break down the architecture of the skin over a long period of time.
Yeah. So that is what made me become interested. And I'm like, okay, these are chemicals. What are in these chemicals? And so I was in graduate school actually, and I was taking toxicology, environmental health course, where I become so much interested in chemical exposure and all of that. And then I started doing literature review about skin lighting and what in these chemicals. And the only article that I was able to find was research that was done in Thailand, where they studied hydroquinone and found association between the usage of skin lighting that have hydroquinone and early on birth defects.
Wow, okay.
So I was like, okay, we need to really study these products that, some of my community members use. And so I was working at the Department of Health, Ramsey County Public Health Department. And so I presented to the leadership, and then also I presented to the School of Public Health. I mean, everybody welcomed the idea, and then that's how I started buying products, is asking the Department of Health. At the time, that was when Governor Dayton came into office, so I get to know the Deputy Commissioner of Health, Jim Koppel, who has been my mentor for the last 8 years now. And I asked them if they can test the products, and then we saw high levels of mercury. I mean, extreme high levels.
An alarming level of mercury. Did that take you by surprise?
I was surprised, and everybody was surprised. The commissioners of health and commissioners of pollution control agencies were surprised too, because they have never seen that levels of mercury in the state for many, many years.
Wow.
And especially that it associates with pregnant women using this. So that's part of why a lot of agencies got involved. FDA got involved, Pollution Control Agency, and the Department of Health Commissioner got involved. And so that is when I started actually not giving up on this issue and creating campaign and policy advocacy, because all of these policies that we have now were not in place.
Right.
And this system, unless you're advocating and consistently making sure that systems change, nothing is going to happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think just the fact that, without having these products tested for mercury, it wouldn't have become this public health crisis, really, because we know that mercury, it really can cause some serious congenital defects in babies in the womb. So this was the alarming factor, right? We have to get the word out, that these certain products contain a toxic level of mercury that could be very dangerous for unborn children.
Yes. And at the same time, I did qualitative research of interviewing women who use these products and seeing what do they use, how often they use and why, So most of the women actually talked about that they don't even stop using the product during pregnancy and breastfeeding.
Right, because there's no information for them to know about the dangerous effects of these products. Yeah.
Yes. Hani, this is the other thing. These communities had no actually understanding or information about any sort of chemical exposure. We're talking about even lead exposure. That lead is a well-established public health issue. That information was not even available in these communities.
Right.
And also even the business owners that sell the skin lighting didn't even know what mercury is. And still, some of them struggled with that.
Right.
And so the public health community was not reaching out to these communities to really teach them about chemicals, chemical exposures, whether it's a skin lighting source or other sources of exposure.
Yeah.
That information was not available to them.
Which is incredibly unfair because, we're so used to reading labels on products when we're buying them, and we have this expectation that when we buy a beauty product or whatever it may be, we can read the label and we know what's in it. But what's happening here is, the buying and selling of products, and we have no idea what's in it, and there's no regulation, and there's no information to the consumer, and it's toxic. And so I can see how that is a huge problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, and the other thing is that in all the products that we tested that contained mercury, none of them on the label indicated mercury in the ingredient. So that means there is no even regulation on the label in this country.
Wow.
So most of these products are imported into the country. We have very limited regulation in this country. And so that's some of the, advocacy that now we do through Beauty Well to make sure that, regulatory systems are strong, that are in place in the United States. But not only the skin lightening products, the cosmetics, there's more than 500 toxic chemicals in this country that are in cosmetics, that are in food, everywhere. And there is no strong regulation, especially pharmaceutical companies.
Right. And that's a problem just nationally, the US when compared to European countries.
European countries have much better regulatory systems. So like example, hydroquinone that's in the skin lighting, European countries and Canada banned it a long time ago, and they have a strong regulation when it comes to that ingredient. But in the US, actually, if you go to Walmart and Walgreens, you can find 4% of hydroquinone in a skin lighting product. And that's toxic, but that's legal in our country. They also use a highly potent steroid, which now we're learning through the dermatologists that we collaborate with that they developed addiction and that they can't even make them stop right away. They have to slowly make sure that they stop so they don't become addicted to the steroid.
They taper it off because it's absorbed by the body.
Yes. So it's multiple. We're talking about multiple impacts.
Yeah. Wow. So, Amira, what have you been able to accomplish, or what areas have you kind of been able to get into in terms of policy change or public awareness? Have you managed to make any strides since your research exposed this mercury issue?
Yeah. So luckily in this state, when we're doing the testing and all of that, we had a policy, mercury policy that was in place since 2007, which the pollution control had a power to regulate any cosmetics that have mercury. So that was easy. But the department, how they do regulatory process, it's more of a like policing, going into the stores, taking off of the shelves. That did not work. So training these staff to do more education and all of that. So that's how business owners were able to get education about mercury and other toxic chemicals before the department regulates. The department hired staff to focus only the skin lighting, which was another successful advocacy. And then we were able also to secure research, biomonitoring study, the first biomonitoring study, in fact, in the world that focused on East Africans and other immigrants to look at mercury exposure from skin lighting. And the Department of Health started doing that research 4 years ago, which they finished April this year, and they found high levels of mercury exposure in pregnant women who used skin lighting products. So the highest group was Hmong, the second highest was Somali, and the third was Latino women.
And this is in the community here in Minnesota?
Yes, in Minnesota. So the biomonitoring study, it focuses here in Minnesota. And so the department was able to recruit pregnant women from these communities and why to compare how much exposure is happening and the disparities, to have control group to see like how much disparity is happening within these groups that use skin lighting practices. And then the other sad thing is that all of these women, pregnant women that showed high levels of mercury in their urine, the department was able to go to their homes actually and test mercury air in the homes. And the sad thing is that all of these homes tested positive mercury and even in the laundry machine.
Oh, wow.
So that means that exposure is not only now limited to those who are using, but also those who live with them and those who visit them. So we were able actually to really establish that research. And now the department, after 4 years, when they finished that, they are embedding that research in clinics, community clinics, to continuously test, do quality improvement and test pregnant women as they come into the clinic and test their urine to see if they're using skin lighting or not. So that's another successful system change that, that I and others who work with me were able to influence.
Wonderful.
And then also this past legislation session, I wrote a bill and advocated through the legislature to really fund this line of work.
Mm-hmm.
Mercury in skin lighting or other chemicals in the skin lighting education campaign was never funded.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the last 8 years, most of the work that I've been doing, it was like my own, like me funding the work that I was doing. And so like it was never something that was funded. And so through the legislature this past session, they actually passed a one-time legislation. And we're hoping that it will continue, one-time legislation of $200,000 to really create public campaign on the skin lighting issue in the state of Minnesota.
That's really wonderful.
Thank you. And that's a huge success because that also establishes the issue as a public health issue. And that other states also can replicate similar legislation because it's not only Minnesota that's experiencing this issue, it's New York, California, other states as well. So they can learn, the models that we use in Minnesota. And then we were able to train more than 100 clinics about how providers can test patients when they come to clinics, especially pediatric clinics and OBGYN. Because I don't have to tell you this, Hani, you're a doctor. Medical doctors have very limited environmental medicine, environmental, training. And so what I do mostly is going into the clinics and training, starting from medical directors and then going into the physicians and then OBGYN specifically and pediatric physicians to really train them how to identify, how to really communicate with their patients because they don't have enough time to really communicate with their patients.
Yeah.
But focusing on the skin lighting, like some of the clinics were able to include in their patient history form as they come into the clinic to ask that question. But also like training them culturally how to talk to them, and not say, oh, do you use a skin lighting product?
Right. That's
not
true.
To scare them.
You have to bring it up in a culturally sensitive way. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also like what biomarkers they need to look at, like inorganic mercury, the way that they can find is through urine tests, like giving them that training. So that's the other thing that we were able to do. And then also training the community. Part of, last 8 years, all of my observational study, one of the things that I found is that as I was getting into this, I was thinking only this is impacting adult women, especially in the Somali community. And one of the things that I realized is that, because I've been partnering with public schools, especially charter schools, one of the things that I realized is that it's also impacting young girls. Young girls have so much issue about identity and self-esteem.
Right.
And so so through Beauty Well, one of the intervention that we were able to create is that this initiative called the Young Women's Wellness and Leadership Initiative to really focus on building their identity and then their self-esteem, addressing self-esteem issue, but also uplifting them, giving them leadership skills. And then also it has components of matching them with individuals, women actually who are in the professional world who look like them that can mentor them.
Right.
So basically it's a wraparound services that will really help them, not only their wellness, but it will help them with their learning process as they are in high school and potentially get into college, but also build their leadership skills and connect them with women of color who are already doing great work. So that representation was not there for them. So that's one of the things that we were able to really do. And now we have ongoing cohorts now, and then we're also going to create another cohort in Cedar Riverside very soon. That has been really great intervention to really prevent this issue in very early on, like early ages. And part of it is that young girls said that their mothers always talk about their skin color and how they look like. There's lack of healthy communication, actually. And so part of the program, part of the curriculum, we're trying to build better communications between the young girls and their parents as well. So beauty,
Wow,
well, the
that's a
work
lot
we
of
do,
headway. Yeah, you
yeah.
really tackle it from all angles, exposing this malice that was unknown, bringing up and kind of tackling it from all angles. It's definitely a multi-pronged issue, and it is a complex issue.
It is, yeah. So
For
beauty,
sure.
well, the work we do, it focuses on the intersection of environmental justice, public health, and community building. We have to build the community in terms of their understanding of health before we even do anything else. And that is also a part that we work so closely to address the issue of beauty standard and really redefine what beauty is in cultural terms.
Absolutely. It is a subject that is somewhat controversial. It's the kind of thing that nobody really wants to talk about. But
Yeah.
I found that, like you said, it's embedded in the culture. And I think it's okay for us to say, this is something that was probably placed in the culture from years, before us, probably before our parents. Colonialism was a worldwide phenomenon. White supremacy is a worldwide phenomenon. And so, if you take a step back and you look at the bigger picture, you see how all of this is interconnected. What does this mean for individual women? A lot of the Muslim women who are listening to this podcast, Muslim women around the world, they're from, minority communities, or they're from communities that are potentially impacted by this. I think you're doing amazing work. I really admire, and I really am so proud that you are recognizing and focusing on this piece of beauty, holistic beauty. And what does beauty mean in the culture? And how does that, interplay with the skin lightening practices? So I think for me, I feel like understanding this is really powerful, the root of all of this, so that we can, break the cycle or help each other break that cycle and say, wait a minute, this is an external, force that was placed in the community, and we don't have to propagate it, mindlessly. We understand it's kind of made its way in and waded into the culture and forced its way in, but we can remove it by, taking back what beauty means to us, and passing those lessons on to our children, ensuring that we are nurturing their self-love, self-confidence, their own sense of beauty and love of themselves, and being very, very careful that we don't take the baggage of, colonialism, which is the different, what skin shade is beautiful, which one isn't, etc., and removing that from how we teach our kids and how we raise them. So it's such important work, and I really am so proud of how far you've come with this. And I remember back in the day when it was the shock of finding out the level of, and the alarm at the level of mercury. It really was an alarm, which gets me to my next point, which is public health. It's such an important thing. I can think of at least a few different women who are thinking about public health or are pursuing it or are in this field. Is career in public health fulfilling? What would you advise a young woman who's thinking about pursuing this line of work?
It's absolutely fulfilling work. I've been working in public health close to now 15 years, and it's an amazing career. But I also have to mention that those who are coming into public health world thinking that they will make a lot of money, I don't think so that's the case. But definitely you'll make difference. You really impactful ways make difference in communities' lives, in both individuals and communities. And so I think it's a really great field. And then public health, it's a very diverse field. Public health has so many areas, but regardless of the areas that they do in public health, they can work in everywhere. Somebody might work in education field, a public health background, that still works, because looking at the social determinants of health, you have to work in all of these places to really make difference and make sure that communities are healthy. So I think public health is such an important field. And my part of public health, my work and my study and research in public health focus mostly in maternal child health, public health and administration. and research as well. And so I think in all of these areas, it's really amazing areas. And now I teach public health at St. Kate University. And part of the reason actually that I choose to teach is that to make sure that those who are coming into public health have equity lens. Because when I was in public health training, I was not trained in equity lens, but I had a lived experience of what it looks like in equity and what it looks like disparity. And so I always wanted to have that lens of equity in the work that I do, public health or policy world. That's part of the reason that now I teach public health, to really build future leaders of public health, to think about equity, but also participatory process, making sure that they go into communities, listen to them, and they're actually developing programs that are participatory process driven.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much, Amira. You know, we need women like you in those fields advocating for us in our communities. So I wholeheartedly support. I think it is so vital, public health research is. So thank you for what you do. For those of you guys that are listening, if you would like to know more about the Beauty Well Project and Amira's work, I will have the website linked in the show notes. In there, I will also have, I just found it, an article that I had read about colorism, which is something we kind of touched on in this episode. I'll link that as well. It's called The Toxic Legacy of Colorism by Caitlin Greenidge, and it's in The Guardian. I will link that. Amira, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us about this very important work, and thanks for everything that you do.
Thank you, Hani, and congratulations again for creating such an amazing podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Professional Muslim Women Podcast, the place for Muslim women to inspire and be inspired.
Please join us on our Facebook group, Professional Muslim Women, to continue the conversation and connect with Muslim women like you. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and drop us a like or a review.
We look forward to hearing from you soon.